Now look, I'm not saying if you're a young person, you should never have a boyfriend or girlfriend. I just want to show you that if you're under the age of 25, you're probably getting a bad deal. There's these things called duties, right? A duty is just something that you morally ought to do, okay? So for instance, the draft is a duty, right? Even if you don't agree with it, you are legally obligated to do it if you're a man. Now look, the draft is a great example of a duty because its repercussions are so easy to see, both socially and legally. But most duties aren't like that. Most duties are social and they're shaped by culture and people. They don't have as obvious of repercussions. And if they do, they're almost always just social repercussions, not legal ones. Some social duties are stuff like orderly conduct. Like you shouldn't go out and just swear in public and yell at everybody, even though it might not technically be a crime, though it can be. The main reason people don't do it is because of social repercussions. It's the same reason that a lot of people don't want to do pornography. Even though on paper it could pay very well and it could be an easy lifestyle, there's societal pressure and shame if you choose that career. Now in dating and relationships, especially in marriage, there's a lot of duties. If we think of a traditional marriage, there's very obvious duties and expectations. The man is expected to be a provider. That means he needs to earn a substantial income, especially nowadays, but the women have duties too, obviously. They're expected to run errands, cook, clean. It's a full-time job. If we think of a modern marriage, both work part of the time, they both cook part of the time, they both clean part of the time, they both take care of the children, etc, etc, etc. But what remains the same between both relationships is that they both have equal duties. Even if they're not the exact same duties, they're still roughly equivalent in their workload. So I've explained what duties are and I've explained how they apply to marriages, but this video isn't about marriage, it's about dating. So how do these duties apply to that? In the first example I laid out with a traditional marriage where there's a male provider and there's a female caretaker, fundamental stuff stays the same. There's still pretty obvious male and female roles. For instance, the man should pay for the date, open the door for the girl, protect them if they get attacked. But now let's look at the female side. If you're a young woman and you're dating, aside from those basic duties of, being nice, not cheating, etc., there's not a lot of gender duties for you. This is because most people who are dating don't have kids. Like I said, you're both probably still working, and because of that, you can't assume those full roles. This would lead us to the conclusion that there's a fundamental imbalance between those two roles. On one hand, if you're a young man and you're dating, you're expected to have at least some of those provider duties. But if you're a young woman and you're dating, you don't really have any gender-specific duties. No, look, I think this actually might be okay, right? Yeah, and if your goal is to get to that traditional marriage that we talked about at the beginning, it might make sense for you to abstain from dating in your younger years. If you want to support a whole family on one income, you need to be making a lot of money. Look, I know dating is fun, right? The thing is, though, the time that you're spending with somebody else could be spent on something more productive, like learning a valuable skill, getting an internship, getting a job, going to college. So I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do anything. I'm simply saying that objectively speaking, if you're a man and you're young and you're dating somebody, you are objectively getting a bad deal. What do I actually recommend you do? Honestly, I'm not totally qualified to answer that question. I'm barely even 16 years old. But in my opinion, if you're a young man and you're thinking about dating, I would say you should probably focus on something else that's going to help you in the long term and it's going to allow you to work towards that goal of a traditional marriage if that's what you want. And if you're a woman, it's a little more ambiguous, right? If you do want that traditional marriage, maybe you shouldn't date as much, but maybe still do some. It's really up to you. If you watched this far in the video, thank you. If you want to subscribe, you can. Thank you for watching.